At the edge of an international border, at the edge of the Pacific, at the edge of innovation, community, education, and discovery, you're listening to At the Edge of It All, a University of San Diego podcast where USD experts speak on topics and stories that impact you and the broader community.
Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Lisette Martinez.
And I'm Elena Gomez, and with us today we have Bob Muth. He's the faculty director of the legal clinics and the managing attorney of the Veterans Legal Clinic, all of this at the University of San Diego. Bob, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
So let's just get started and talk a little bit about the legal clinics. There's 11 here at the University of San Diego. Describe a little bit about what these clinics are and what they do.
Sure. So you're right. We have 11 different clinics and they operate in a wide variety of different areas of law. So first and foremost, we provide pro bono legal assistance, so free legal assistance to lower income individuals, primarily here in the San Diego County community. And it runs the gamut of the different types of areas of law we represent people in. So it could be a low income veteran who's in a dispute with the VA over getting access to medical care or benefits. It could be someone who's trying to immigrate to the United States or bring somebody along who's a family member that they're trying to have immigrate. It could be someone who's a low-income worker who's in a dispute with their employer over maybe the fact they didn't get paid the right amount or they're denying them their wage and benefits for some reason. So there's a whole different areas of law that we can assist people in.
And I'm just going to assume that not all schools of law have something similar to this, but I can see how important this is in sort of like giving back to the community, right? Is this kind of the reason why they were created to begin with? Or can you talk to me a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so USD has actually been kind of a pioneer in clinical education. We are celebrating our 51st anniversary this year of the legal clinics here at USD. And the clinics have a dual mission. So on the one hand, we're providing high quality, free legal assistance to individuals within our community who are underserved, but we're also trying to provide excellent legal training to our law students. So we take cases with an eye to trying to meet both those missions and the types of area of law we work in to make sure that we're both preparing our students to go out in the world and be good attorneys, while at the same time assisting folks who just really need some free legal assistance.
How do you go about choosing what kind of clinics you would have here at the school?
So it's a combination of a few things. One is the demand within the community. So some of the clinics were started, quite frankly, just because our community partners came to us and said, there's a real unmet need. We're seeing a lot of people who are having a problem with this specific area of law and nobody's able to assist them. So can you? And because we're a university, we have a little bit more flexibility than some of our nonprofit partners. And some of it is what is a good case for a student to work on. So certain types of cases just lend themselves better to a student. Maybe they have a shorter timeline. That might be okay for some clinics, but not for others. Some of the cases, they're well situated to have a few different students working on them. Some of them really just need one person. So we're trying to balance the different types of cases and the educational opportunity we're going to provide, while at the same time making sure we can make an impact in the community.
Talk a little bit about what that looks like when someone comes to you for help. The students are, as you mentioned, working on these cases, but there's also faculty and attorneys there helping the students as well. So tell us a little bit about what that would look like, the process if someone reaches out.
Sure. So we essentially look like a law firm here on campus. So if you were to come into our offices, it's set up like a law firm, and that's deliberate. There are right now 18 different professors who have some impact or interaction with the clinics in different ways. And so the students function kind of like associates, like more junior attorneys would at a law firm or at a government agency. And then the professors serve like partners. So the students are actually the ones who are going to have most of the interaction with the client. They're the one who's going to do the initial intake. They're the one who's going to be calling the client with updates, doing the research, drafting motions, drafting appeals. But kind of in the background through everything is going to be a professor who's going to be reviewing everything that's done and making sure both the best substantive argument can be made on behalf of the client, because they're actually my clients or my colleagues' clients, while also trying to mentor the student to say, look, the way you're drafting this, you could do it a little bit better if you worded it this way or that way. And then when we go to court, we go together. So we have a student who will be sitting there right next to the professor, and the judge calls our case, and the student will be the one who stands up and makes the argument, and I'll be there to make sure nothing nothing crazy happens, but we're there to work together on it. And it's really great for the clients because they're able to get a student who's really excited to work on their case, has the time to work on their case. It's free service for them. This is the student's Super Bowl in many ways. So they're really ready. They're more prepared than most of the attorneys they're going to interact with. But at the same time, they're getting access to a professor who, quite frankly, they just simply couldn't afford if we were just working in private practice.
I was going to actually bring that up because I can see how important this would be for a student, right? An opportunity to put into practice everything they have learned before they go into the workforce. And they're just fresh eyes. And as you said, very motivated to help these clients. Has there ever been a situation where you have worked with a student that has gone into court, argued the case, and then get hired from a firm right off the bat because they did such a great job? I mean, I don't know. Have you ever had really impressive cases and students?
Yeah, so we absolutely. So sometimes we'll partner with different community partners or law firms to work on individual cases who are taking the case on pro bono. I actually, there was one case that comes to mind right off the top of my head when you mentioned that, where we had a student who was making an oral argument in a case on behalf of a client, and just completely out of nowhere, a bunch of the attorneys, once the student sat down, just started applauding, which nobody's ever applauded my oral argument in a case. It was remarkable. And then the judge commented afterwards on what a great job the student had done. And part of that's because they've been prepared. We spent a lot of time getting ready for those hearings in a way that most attorneys just simply can't. They're moving on to the next case. But for us, it's both a learning experience for the student, and at the same time, we're trying to help the clients. And there's a lot of students who find out, maybe they didn't know what area of law they wanted to work on. They start working on a specific case for a client, and they find out how rewarding it is, and then they end up, kind of pursuing that area of law. So it's a really great partnership, both for the student being able to get experience, but then also for the clients to be able to get assistance.
For someone that is looking for legal help, and legal services are expensive. What are some of the requirements if you're looking to come to the clinic and you need to find legal help? What are some of the requirements needed to get help through the clinics?
Yeah, so we have, like we mentioned at the top, we have 11 different clinics. Really, we almost say like 11 and a half, because we have a project that operates out of one of the clinics that is a little bit of a different area, but is helping people in a different way. And basically, if people just call our main line, we can kind of basically go through and triage what's your issue. If it fits within one of the different areas that we assist with, we'll move on to doing an intake with them, assuming they meet our kind of eligibility requirements. And then if it doesn't, we'll try to find another pro bono partner we can refer them to if possible. Now, one of the challenges is there's just a lot of unmet need, not only here in San Diego County, but throughout California and the country, for people who are trying to get legal assistance who just can't afford it. But if there's a way for us to help place them somewhere else, we'll do that.
Has there ever been a case that kind of stuck with you because you saw that case to be a perfect example of what the clinics were meant to be?
Yeah, so I'm the managing attorney of our veterans clinic. So I supervise all of the clinics, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm really handling individual veterans clients' matters. And we had a client who came to us who was homeless at the time he had come to us. He was not getting benefits from the VA because he had been separated less than fully honorably from the military. He had undiagnosed and untreated mental health issues. And so that had led to substance abuse and a lot of other problems. And so he had no money. He could never have afforded another attorney. And he really just couldn't engage with a system that was designed to help him, that he's exactly the type of veteran you'd want to help. And so we took that case on. He had been battling the VA at that point for almost 5 years and gotten nowhere. He was living out of his car. And we handled the case. We worked it through all the way up through a few different appeals, and he ended up being rated at 100% for his disabilities, receiving medical care for his disabilities. In addition to some mental health issues, he ended up needing open heart surgery, so they granted him the ability to get open heart surgery through the VA. And now at this point, he got a check for the fact that they had denied him care for so long. It was a 6-figure check. So this is an individual who had been homeless when he came to the clinics. And that's a case where a law firm just wouldn't take that case. But it was perfect for students. He had voluminous medical records. He had voluminous military records. The students dug in and really worked on it. They believed in him. They believed in the case and were there to be able to kind of see it through. And it ended up being a series of students who worked on the case. It took years. But that's a kind of thing that a legal clinic can do because we don't need to get paid at the end of the day for that case. So it just completely changed that individual's life. And it was very rewarding.
Wow. Bob, that is just fantastic. And I know that is dear to your heart because you're a vet yourself, right? We always like to ask our guests, how do they get to where they're at today? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your passions for this type of work.
Sure. So I was privileged to serve our country as the United States Marine. Specifically, I was a judge advocate in the Marine Corps, and so I had served through kind of an interesting time to be in the military. It was when there was obviously the wars going on. I left active duty in 2009, and eventually USD was looking to expand their clinical offerings. And so they said they were interested in starting a veterans clinic, and I just kind of jumped at it. I had been in private practice at the time, and that's where I started. And then I did that for a few years. And when our director of our whole clinical program became the vice dean of the law school, I ended up becoming the director of the clinics. And so it's just been a blast. It's been about 10 years now. I've really enjoyed it.
Wow. I want to kind of circle back to your work with the Veterans Legal Clinic. You kind of mentioned that case, that incredible case that your team won. What are some of the common themes or cases that your team sees maybe in the veteran clinic or maybe other clinics, that maybe recommendations you have for people at home that may be in a similar situation of some of the things that your team has seen commonly?
Yeah, so we originally founded the clinic to assist veterans who had been scammed out of their GI Bill benefits. The GI Bill is an education benefit that veterans receive when they leave active duty so they can try to get a college degree. And we had seen a number of veterans being basically taken advantage of by primarily for-profit schools that were not providing them with a quality education, making a lot of misrepresentations. So we started assisting veterans in that capacity, and we still do that to this day, and have had a lot of successes. It's something we've become kind of known for. We've handled the class action case with that. We've assisted just veterans kind of all throughout the pipeline of both those who are at the school at the time and were trying to get out of that school situation, or were trying to get their money back after they had left. But we also assist veterans who are trying to get VA benefits, so medical care or disability compensation, people who can't work anymore because of a service-connected disability. And then finally, assisting vets who are trying to correct their military records. So it could be like the veteran I mentioned earlier who had some misconduct, but it was directly related to post-traumatic stress that just wasn't diagnosed at the time. But it could also be other things. Like we just recently won a case for a veteran who was separated for being gay, had committed no misconduct, was just gay. And so they kicked this veteran out with less than fully honorable discharge. And so we were able to appeal that discharge. This had happened in the past before the rules had kind of changed. And so we were able to assist that veteran who had been kind of carrying around this stigma and this kind of shame of having this less than fully honorable discharge since the 1980s. And so it was a great win, something like that where you can really assist somebody in just correcting the record and making sure that they are able to receive the benefits that they should deserve.
I'm sure the need is staggering and you can't help everyone, right? So what can you tell us in terms of guiding the public as to who can come to these types of legal clinics, especially here at the university, and what kind of other assistance is out there for them if they can't afford an attorney but are in need of one?
That's a great question. So there's certainly unmet needs within our community and more broadly within California. I think probably the easiest way for them to figure out what we do is just to look up the clinics online. You can see the 11 different clinics that we have. They'll give you an idea of the general topic areas we work on, and then they can call the clinics and we'll go through whether or not their specific issue is a good fit for us, whether it's something we can assist with, whether it might be somebody else. There are some other resources, although unfortunately they're just not enough for everybody who's looking for legal assistance. But Legal Aid of San Diego certainly is a good resource for pro bono legal assistance. So is the San Diego Volunteer Lawyer Program. They can also call the county bar, and there are some lawyers who will either provide pro bono legal assistance or what we call low bono, so lower cost legal assistance. Maybe not as their primary job, but they might be able to take on a case, every once in a while and do it. So that's probably the easiest and the best different options they have, us, Legal Aid, and San Diego Volunteer Lawyer Program. But there's also other resources. If it's an immigration clinic, maybe Casa Cornelia, which does some great work on immigration issues, or if it's a more senior citizen individual who's dealing with the problem, there's a group called Elder Law. So if they can reach out to us or reach out to Legal Aid or reach out to San Diego Volunteer Lawyer Program, hopefully one of us will be able to kind of put them in the right direction of who's best situated to be able to assist.
I can only assume that it's really important for all of you guys to work together in conjunction, right, and help each other out as far as nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we try very hard not to duplicate services. We try to figure out, okay, these guys are working on this issue, so we'll try to work on this other issue that's close to it, but maybe a little bit different, so that way there's not gaps. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things where there's a lot of people who need assistance in the community, unfortunately, and so we can't cover everything, but we try very hard to kind of extend the net as broadly as we can.
Yeah, I imagine, anytime you're dealing with a legal issue where you need a lawyer to help you, it can seem overwhelming, but it looks like there's a lot of resources out there that people just maybe don't know about. What is your recommendation for a first step if you feel like you're in that situation where you might need a lawyer? Is it just making that first phone call to some of the groups that you mentioned, or what would you recommend to make sure that you're finding the best resource for your situation?
And I'll give you an example. Psychology Today is some page that a lot of, psychologists and mental health experts will send you to as a one-stop shop for you may be able to find a lot of things there. Is there a website like that for legal services?
Yeah, so there's not. And part of the problem is it's just so specific as to what the area of law is. There's been different times when people have tried to kind of create a kind of a one-stop shop for legal services. But there isn't really anything that works perfectly. I think the hardest part is just making the first phone call. Most of the time when people are calling us, they've had a really bad day. Some of them have had maybe the worst set of days they've had in their entire lives. They're somebody's suing them, something bad is happening, they're worried about getting deported. There could be all kinds of things going on. So just kind of having the courage to make the first phone call and reach out for help sometimes is the biggest step. And then hopefully, if we can't assist them, somebody else we'll be able to point them in the direction of somebody else who can.
And you make a very important point there. What is the emotional toll that comes with helping, some of these people and working in some of these cases for your students, for example? I'm sure sometimes it may be very hard for them.
Yeah, so we actually talk about it, and different clinics will approach it different ways, and different ones have different types of challenges. But we talk about it in terms of what we call vicarious trauma. It's basically when you hear these stories, and it can sometimes be very triggering or very difficult to just emotionally deal with the fact that somebody has had this really horrible thing happen to them, and now they're coming to you to try to assist. And that's part of being a lawyer, right? So that's part of our training, is making sure that our students are able to both at the same time provide really high quality legal services to those clients in need, but at the same time taking care of themselves. And so that's part of the mentorship role that the professors see is our part to play, is making sure we can educate our students in how to deal with this kind of a problem.
And lastly, Bob, because I know you're a very busy man, you have to go back to those clinics. I can also assume that there's a lot of generosity out there of people who want to help with these legal clinics. I'm sure that you have had some donors in the past and are always welcoming people who are interested in furthering the work that you do there.
Yeah, so our work gets supported by a lot of different entities and organizations. Some of it comes from government grants, some of it comes from private foundations, but a lot of it comes from individuals within the community who are just interested in supporting either the clinical program more broadly or individual clinics. And they say, this is an issue for me. So for example, our veterans clinic, there's a lot of vets out there who have either had issues with the VA in the past or worried about other vets, kind of the next generation of vets. They want to make sure they're taken care of. And so this is one way they can support kind of the new generation of vets. But that kind of applies throughout the different clinics across the board.
And where can people go to reach you? Is there a number, or what is the best way to reach out if they're looking for help?
Sure. So probably the easiest way is just to go online and search, like on Google or something, for USD legal clinics. They can also call our main line, 619-260-7470, and that'll get you to the main line for the clinics, and then they can kind of point you in the right direction from there.
All right. Well, Bob, this was very useful, and I hope people at home can use this to help them if they're in a situation where they might need your services at the legal clinic. So thank you so much for talking with us. And if you're interested in this episode, be sure to subscribe for the next one.